Speaking with Neil Barembaum, Hall of Fame inductee 2011, and it's now January 2012. Okay, Neil, let's start at the beginning and tell about your early life. Where were you born and where did you go through school and all that good stuff?
I was born in Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico.
Okay.
So it was interesting hearing at the meeting today about immigrants coming with zero vocabulary to kindergarten. I had zero vocabulary until second grade. I'm not sure I've progressed much beyond that. We were in Monterrey until I was about first grade. Second grade, we moved to Illinois. Mother didn't like the cold. Third grade, we moved to Southern California. Eventually, we ended up in Whittier, where I went to school at Lowell High School in Whittier, not San Francisco. It no longer exists, so there's no confusion there. And I did participate in forensics in my high school career. It was kind of interesting because there was something called speech and debate in junior high school. And my brothers and I loved to argue, so I said, hey, you know, debate sounds good, but I don't know about this speech thing. So I never did it in middle school. But
now this was on a competitive with other schools?
I don't know if it was or not, because I didn't get involved in middle school.
Oh, okay.
But in high school, it was two different things, speech and debate. So I got involved in debate. Of course, the debate coach was also the speech coach, and she got me to do speech tournaments as well. So much for that distinction.
Now, this was probably policy debate?
This was policy debate. Although towards the end of my first year, or in there somewhere, I went to an invitational where they actually had Lincoln Douglas.
Okay, LD started in 80, so.
Okay, that would have been 80? Oh,
80
yeah.
or 81?
In CHSSA it started in 80, but this was at an invitational.
So okay, all right.
I do remember it because there were three of us, and I ended up with second place.
Well, out of three, good for you. Good for you. Okay, what did you do in individual events?
I did interpretations.
Okay.
I did dramatic interp, and then humorous interp, and then I came back to dramatic interp.
Can you remember and share with us a piece that you might have done? What selection?
I did Night.
Oh, yeah,
by
okay.
Elie Wiesel,
Right.
read by all the kids nowadays.
Yeah.
So I still, I'm able to open up the page. Oh yeah, I did this line, I did that line. But I cut and paste from several different places, so I cannot choose.
Yeah.
I cannot find a selection. I also did Old Man Adam the Children, the tales of tell by the man when the Lord walked the earth like a natural man.
I remember that. That was a very popular piece at one time.
Must have been before my time, because nobody heard of it when I did it.
Is that right? Yeah, I go back a lot further than you do. In fact, I had a very successful student do that my first year teaching in 1963. So that does go back a ways. All right, where'd you go to college?
UCLA.
Did you do any speech there?
The only thing I did is UCLA would have an invitational tournament, and I did judge at one invitational tournament.
Okay, just judging there. Okay. Okay. And all your college was UCLA, straight through. And that took you to your teaching, or was there anything in between?
Essentially, I started teaching.
Okay. At?
Belmont High School, Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. And what were you teaching besides speech? If you were teaching speech.
I was teaching math.
Okay.
My first year was just math, and then they started doing some computer classes.
Okay.
But somewhere in those first 3 or 4 years, I found out we had a speech club. It's kind of hard to find out. It had been going the whole time, but I didn't know about it. So when I found out we did have one, I volunteered to judge, so I went along as an adult and helped chaperone the kids and helped judge. And then out of necessity, the coach was no longer able to continue. And he went to the principal and said, him, pick him. So they asked me to take on the coaching job, and I did.
Okay, when was that?
That was 89, it was in 1989.
Okay, and I know you haven't been there all along, or maybe you were. Were you there till you stopped coaching?
Yes, I was there for 23, 24 years.
Okay, I think we're being interrupted here. Okay, during this time and up till now, what offices have you held? What what have you done outside the tournament forensic work as far as speech is concerned?
There was, at some point, I was asked to become the vice president of individual events. That's the officer in our league that runs the speech tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a very long time. I had been involved in the Senior High Association of Speech Educators. That was an LAUSD-based organization that would run an all-district tournament. And I'd written a computer program for that tournament. And I was very naive about it because I'd never run speech tournaments before, so I was writing a program for something I didn't know how to do. And I remember I thought it was basically like dealing cards. And it worked well for most events, except I remember there was one event where there were 5 competitors, each from 5 different schools, 25 competitors from 5 schools each. And if you shuffled the cards out, and the first time you shuffle them, everything comes out perfectly. So the first round was great. The second round, it deshuffled everything. So all of the students were in a round with the rest of the students from their school. So round A had panel A had the students from one school, panel B had the students from another school, panel C had the students from another school. So it told me, number one, it wasn't a good way of doing it. And number two, I had to learn to do the paneling by hand. So what I did is I used that program when I started running my own tournaments at WBFL to just set things up to a certain point. And then I had another computer gadget that I would use to set the paneling to a certain point, and then I would go in there and do everything else by hand.
Boy, this was really the beginnings of computer tournaments.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was using computers to run
Yeah.
tournaments then.
And you remember about when that was?
No, it was mid-90s.
In the mid-90s, okay. Okay, how long have you been on the council as of 2012 now?
I'm not sure. It was the late 90s, 98 or so,
Okay,
when I was tapped to get involved in the curriculum committee.
okay.
Chuck Vogler asked me to be on the committee, and he said, I think it would really shine if you get on it. And at that point, I hadn't even taught a speech class. I'd only been the coach. So I said, what do I know about curriculum? So I got on there, and I started working with some amazing people, doing some amazing work. And I thought, I may not know everything that's going on here, but I have something to contribute. And this is something I could do for a while.
Very good. So you never have taught speech? You've always just been
At that point, I had not.
Oh, at that
taught
point,
speech.
okay.
Being involved in the curriculum material committee and seeing the curricular materials, I'd been asked by the principal if I would teach a speech class. At first I said no, because I didn't have any experience. I'd never even been in a speech class. But after I had seen the curricular material, I said, I could do this. So the third or fourth or fifth, I don't remember the time that she asked me, I said, okay, I'll do it. And it was in an international studies academy. The students were wonderful. So my first few years teaching speech were very positive. The kids were great. We had a great time. It wasn't a really good conduit for my speech team because the speech class was very late in their year. But I did pick up some of the students from there.
All right.
My speech team was always extracurricular.
What do you remember most over the years about certain students or groups of students and their successes?
I had a couple of dynasties. Students come in and they'll do really well, and for the 4 years they'll do really well. Maybe they get some other kids in, and it'll go beyond the 4 years. When I first started, I had some really great kids as freshmen, and then I had them all 4 years. And then when they graduated, it was a little dry for a little bit. And then there's this other group of kids that came in, and they were just fantastic. And I recommend them for anything. And I still am in contact with quite a few of them. One of them actually is my brother-in-law, but that's a different story.
Okay. We were talking a moment ago about offices and how you get going with this. When did you become our treasurer, And and maybe how did it happen? And any experiences you might want to share that stand out, because there has to be. There has to be stories since you become treasurer
Stories that I could
that you could tell
that
us.
I could tell.
That you could tell us.
Well, no. There were a couple of things that I did when I got into the curriculum committee. Dara McDonald suggested that I do a website, so I did a website.
Mhm.
There were some things that were going on in the council that I wasn't too happy with, so I wrote an article for the bulletin, and people were really pleased about that. So that happened to be when the treasurer and the editor were both retiring, so they each asked me to take over their place, and I decided I'd be a better treasurer than an editor. So I took on that role. And I had this big tub of materials. Well, there were some instructions, some very good instructions, some very good advice that I followed, but I've spent a lot of time just feeling it out on my own, figuring out what to do.
You've got to last a long time, because I'm sure you realize this organization in over 50 years had only had three treasurers.
Meaning I'm a third, or?
No, Jack Mansfield, Larry Smith, and Neil Barembaum. And that, I don't know, there may have been some way back, but that goes back to the late 50s anyway, with just those three. So hey, you got a long time to go. From tournaments that you've been a part of, state tournaments, you've been to some national tournaments?
Yes.
Okay. And what stands out in your mind? What about those biggie tournaments do you remember?
I went to two national tournaments. One of them was in Indianapolis, and I took two kids to that one. And I had one Congress kid and one original oratory kid. And the way they were running the tournament, I would have to drive the original oratory kid from the hotel to the tournament, come back to the Congress kid. We'd have breakfast discussing the bills that he was going to be debating, and then I'd drive him, and then have to drive back to the other students. So they were actually in different places at different times, and keeping the logistics straight was kind of interesting. But the other one was in Minneapolis. That's what I have to remember, because one was Indianapolis, the other one was
Minneapolis. Okay.
And that one I just had the one student doing her original oratory. And that one was a lot easier. I don't know that she lasted very long, but she had some friends in the area, so we took advantage of the trip, and once I completed my judging requirements, we went to see visit her friends for a while. So no big stories there.
Okay. Did you make it to the Mall of America?
Yes, we did.
All right. In your speech career, you've been in contact with lots of people, and I'd be curious as to who are some of the coaches that helped you along the way, that stand out? Maybe just a couple of ones that really contributed to your career.
No, it couldn't be a couple. It has to be a lot of them.
Well, okay. Narrow it down and move on.
Narrow it down. Well, it would have to, in the league, it would have to be Chuck Vogler.
Okay.
And some of the other coaches that maybe weren't mentoring me, but were supporting me in other ways. I couldn't have hold the jobs that I held without having a lot of support from these people. So it would be Karen Jardine and Martha Kermott and all these WDFL people who basically allowed me to lead them and supported me in whatever it was I needed to do. Once I got on CHSSA, and here's this shy math computer science kid in this speech organization, but I got a lot of support from the curriculum vice presidents. Sharon Prefontaine was my first one, and then Lynette, and then Rita, and they've been wonderful in figuring out what to do with me, basically. And of course, Andara was very, very supportive. She was in the curriculum committee, but she also became president and basically prodding me on to do whatever I could to help CHSSA.
Okay. Um, okay, once they prodded you, once they encouraged you, what do you think was the best thing they got out of you? What's your, in your mind, what's the best thing, your greatest contribution to speech?
The original website I still think is pretty good. I'd like to bring it out and
Oh, it's
maybe,
still up?
it's not up, but I have it.
Oh, you have it,
I
okay.
have a backup of it somewhere. Maybe just for historians' sake, I might want to put it up someplace so that people can see it. And maybe take a model of it and use it to help guide the current website. Getting CHSSA to computerize more.
Okay.
I think we were doing a lot of the sweepstakes on the computer. And then I would do more and more of that so that basically it would just give me results and I could whip out the sweepstakes. Of course, the whole thing's done on computer now. I wasn't involved with that. But just pushing CHSSA into being more computer-centered, using the computer to help us run things,
Okay.
I think was a big contribution.
What changes have you seen in speech competition and speech education in general in your time?
Well, I've seen the interprets become more open, where
Yeah.
they've become much more permissive. That's not something I'm very happy about. It seems to me it becomes less of a speech event and more of a, can I find something that nobody else can find, or can I do something that nobody else has done, and just for the shock value and not for the skill of being a good speaker, a good interpreter. And the other bad thing that I've seen is the trend that the policy debate has taken, and now Lincoln Douglas, where again it's gone away from the speech skills and more towards becoming an arcane activity that only the anointed can participate in.
Amen. Okay, I shouldn't editorialize here, that's for sure. What do you see for forensics in the future in California?
That depends. I've seen a trend where we've lost many coaches that haven't been replaced, many schools that have lost programs, and I'm afraid I'm one of those because Belmont no longer has a program. And I think that's going to happen more and more, and that's something that we need to be careful of and take care of somehow. I'm glad we have a PR committee that will help to reverse that, maybe, hopefully.
Hopefully.
So if we are able to do that, if we are able to be successful in our efforts, then speech will pick up again, because it's very important, especially for people like me who aren't speakers, that need to learn the skills somehow. So we need to make sure that we do that, and because there's so many people that want to do it, that want to make sure that speech is taken care of, even though they may not want to personally have anything to do with it. That's the situation I have in my school right now. We've had discussions about, we need to show them how to present. How can we expect them to be able to do that if we don't actually teach them? And yet the subject of, well, maybe we need to have a speech class hasn't come up, or maybe we need to have a speech team. I don't want to, I'm not in a position to get involved in coaching again, so I can't say, well, I'll do it. But there's nobody there that wants to do it. There's nobody there that will take it over. I will certainly support anybody that wants to do it, but I had one teacher that said that we're willing to, and we're going to sort of work out something together so that I would help out, and he would be the person responsible. But he's retired now. And nobody else has taken it up. So I know we have the support. I know there are people that want speech to succeed. We just have to, as CHSSA, make sure that we give them the tools to help us to succeed.
Okay. Now we've talked about lots of things about you in the last few minutes, and probably missed something. So to wrap it up, is there anything in your life, anything in your feelings, your pet peeves, or any thoughts that you'd want to share in conclusion?
Well, pet peeves I think we've covered.
Yes, you have. Right.
In terms of the people that helped me, I need to mention my wife. This isn't one of those nice things, but when I was running tournaments at WBFL, when I was coaching, she was the female chaperone. And she was helping me work with the kids, and she would go with us to tournaments and help me corral the kids. And The kids really liked her. And then when I was running tournaments, she would run the judges. And I would be in the tab room running tab, and she would be in the front running judges. And we were talking about having a nice face as opposed to somebody who's efficient. And well, she's somebody that was able to do both. Or if she wasn't as nice, they appreciated the fact that she was competent and that she was running the judges very strictly and that everything would get done on time. So that as the tab room person, I may have been the brain, but she was making sure that everything was taken care of. So I take credit for my tournaments running on time because she was doing everything. And then of course when I was working in CHSSA, beginning with sitting down and doing the sweepstakes, she was sitting right next to me and we were having fun having sweepstakes of all things. I know people would walk by and they would say, you guys are doing numbers, what's so funny? We enjoy what we're doing. And then when I started becoming the treasurer, she's an accounting major, so I kind of heard some stuff and she'd process it and I'd enter it into the computer. So, at every step that I participated in, she's been helping me and supporting me.
Okay. I appreciate you and everything that you have done for the organization and what we know will continue to be done. And thank you very, very much.